Hello everybody, this is Karma Killed the Cat, and welcome to your fourth C++ tutorial. So in this tutorial, we'll be going over loops, the while and the for loop. And in our variables tutorial, I know I said we'd be going over strings, but while I was planning to do that tutorial, I was planning exactly what to cover in the tutorial, and I realized that since I haven't used strings since the string library since I've first learned C++, I don't remember how to use it at all. So next tutorial, I think I'll try to refamiliarize myself with that, and we can go over that in the next tutorial. But in this tutorial, we'll be going over loops, which you will honestly use a lot more. So let's get started. The first loop is the while loop, and so declaring this is sort of like an if statement. So you do while, and then space, open and close parentheses, and we put our condition in here. So what a while loop does is, while an if statement is saying if condition then do something, a while loop is saying while this condition is true, do something. And when the block of code in the do something part ends, it goes back to the top, rechecks if the condition is true, and then if the condition is still true, it'll do that again. So the obvious example for this is counting to 10. So we'll do int I for iterator equals 10. And now this is not what you'll be using a for loop or a while loop for when you're actually making real projects, but you'll be using a for loop for stuff like this. But this is the easiest example, the easiest to understand, so we'll just do this for now. So we'll say while I, I is equal to 0, while I is less than 10, or less than or equal to 10. Remember the comparison operators from the if statements tutorial. So we'll do standard count I and end line, and then we'll do I plus plus. So I can't remember if I went over this, but what I plus plus does is it adds, or any variable plus plus does is it adds 1 to the variable. So that's a lot easier than doing I equals I plus 1 or I plus equals 1. So that's just a good little shortcut to know. So basically what this is saying is while I is less than 10, print I and add 1 to I. So if we run this, it's going slowly, but it should work. Alright, there we go. So we'll run this. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And say we were to do I is less than 10, it would only count to 9. So that's just one basic example of the while loop. Alright, so now let's get into for loops. So a for loop is specifically for counting a number, so you wouldn't actually use a while loop for stuff like this, you'd use a for loop. So we'll do for, and then we'll say int I equals 0. So we declare the variable within the for loop instead of declaring it outside. And then we'll do the condition I is greater than or equal to 20 to make it different from the while loop one. And then I plus plus. So we create the iterator here, and then you have the condition for when you want it to stop, and then you have here what you want to do with the iterator, and then we have our block of code here. And actually, just to make the example a little different, we'll do that. So now it's only counting we added too many. Now it's only counting even numbers because it's adding 2 to I instead of just 1. So then we'll just copy and paste this. Control C, Control, damn it. Alright, not sure what that was. So now, if we just change this from I to iter, this stands for iterator. I just changed it so we wouldn't run into naming problems here. So let's run this. So now we have 0 to 10 from the while loop, and then 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on up to 20. So these are doing pretty much the same thing, but a for loop can only do numbers, and a while loop can do everything else. and I pressed another button that froze the program. Let's just undo that. So, alright, so now let's get into break and continue statements. So what a break statement does is it causes the loop to stop and the code to move on, and what a continue statement does is it causes the loop to ignore the rest of the code in the block and just start over at the beginning. So I'm just going to keep with the counting up example so we can get rid of the while loop. So we'll change this back to 10 and change this to I++. So we'll start with continue. So we'll do if I equals 5. So we have an if statement in here. It's saying if I equals 5, then continue. So what this is saying is if I equals 5, start over at the beginning of the loop. So it won't output I when it runs the loop when I equals 5. So if we run this, it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it did skip 5. But say we wanted the loop to completely stop if it hit 5 for some reason. Misspelled that. Break. So now what it's saying is if I equals 5, stop the loop and move on. So we'll run this, and it only counts to 4. So that's how break and continue statements work. They're both surprisingly useful. You may think you'll never use these, but you will use them a lot. And you'll also be using loops a lot. And just one more thing very quickly. There's also another kind of loop. I just remembered this. There's really no purpose for this, I don't think. So we'll just recreate this. Iter equals 0. And we do. And we'll just do Control-C, Control-V. You really don't need to know this, but why not? And then you have while here, I is less than or equal to 10. Iter, iterator. So this is a do while loop. I think you put a semicolon here, maybe? Yeah. So this, okay. Oh, I forgot to do iterator ++. And needs a semicolon. And see, that's just the same. We do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then counts to 10. This is the exact same thing as a while loop. There's no purpose for this at all. So I think that's the end of this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I promise we will go over the string library. I'm gonna relearn how to use that, and then we can go over it.